Welcome everybody to episode number 10 of the Hitting Zone. That's where we basically take baseball topics that enter the zone and we crush them. I'm excited about today's episode. We got Andrew Keck on. Andrew, you're from St. Louis. I'm not sure what high school, but former SEMO guy, Cape Girardeau, and then a resident for a few years with the Atlanta Braves organization. And, big shout out to Game 7 Baseball, Prime Sports Midwest, and obviously Youth Baseball Midwest. That's where we stream our shows, record our shows. Excited, again, for this opportunity to bring on a young kid that might be a little bit more in touch with today's generation than myself. I think when you were born, I was already graduated high school and in my freshman year of college. So,
Andrew, I'm definitely different side of it for sure.
If you could, sir, please kind of introduce yourself and make everybody that's YBM fans let everybody know who Andrew Keck is.
Yeah, first off, just want to really say thank you for having me on. Really appreciate the opportunity. Obviously, Andrew Keck, from St. Louis. I went to Vianney High School, graduated there in 2018. Was actually a part of something pretty special there, a 37-2 team in 2018 that was, ranked not only in the state but nationally. So it was a really cool experience there. Was lucky enough to grab a scholarship and go play at SEMO. At SEMO, in 21, got to play in an Ole Miss regional, which was a really cool experience. And then 22 turned around and went to Louisville and played there. So some great experiences there. And then was drafted in the 10th round by the Atlanta Braves in 2022 and spent some time there. And then here just recently kind of stepped away from the playing side and have started a K-12 sports group in the private baseball training side of things, and getting into some of that stuff. So super exciting times. But I'm kind of in the thick of it with the youth, but also high school, professional, and even college, working with some of those athletes. So kind of seeing all sorts of different views and aspects of the game of baseball. And it's about as, diverse and as special as I've ever seen it.
Yeah, it's an interesting time for baseball. I mean, when I was recruiting, it was snail mail and VHS. So I had to send highlights, for my recruiting purposes. And so it seemed like back then, you would travel relatively close to home. And what I see nowadays is even now, even with the buzz of social media, Twitter, X, whatever you call it, all these streaming services for these big tournament providers, you still see that kids still travel kind of remotely close to home. I mean, St. Louis guy, SEMO guy, it's only a 2-hour drive down to Cape. So now that you're kind of on this side, that AK-12 side, what is that something that you see is like kids still like to travel kind of close to home?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think to keep in mind is St. Louis does a wonderful job with baseball tournaments in the youth and kind of running things like that. I think we've almost kind of made it a little bit of a hub for other teams to come to. I hear about, all the great tournaments down in Chesterfield and other facilities around here where Perfect Game and PBR and some of those places are in. I think kudos to St. Louis and the baseball world has kind of built around that travel ball and things like that. I will say I've almost tried to stay as far out of the travel ball scene as I can and just strictly, help athletes, help baseball and softball players achieve, the dreams and the goals that they're trying to achieve and, trying to get them to the highest level that, that they want to compete at. And I think for me, that's been a huge driver of getting into this side of baseball. There's so many different sides. I've kind of, while I'm young, I've kind of seen a few different sides: the coaching side, the playing side, the college, professional, all of that. It's really cool to kind of see how all of those mold into one that you may not ever know about until you kind of experience it and just kind of run the course of baseball.
Yeah, I think I hope that every kid has a dream of being a big leaguer, and we know how difficult that can be. With, just kind of looking at your SEMO experience, you guys in 2020, which was the COVID year, I remember looking at that team, and you guys had four professional athletes, I think, from that 2020 group.
Yep.
And Justin Dearden was on the show. He's retired from baseball. Wade Strauss, I think Strauss.
Yeah.
He's actually still in
Spouse.
the Cardinals organization. I think he's up at Trips right now as a catcher.
Yep.
Yourself, and then Darren Dodd, who's actually had some MLB experience. That
Yeah.
2020 group for you guys, man, I know that obviously with COVID it shut you down, but that 17 games or whatever you guys had was insane, because I think Justin was leading everybody in hitting, and all the
Yep.
major categories in hitting. I think were hitting 400 or something crazy like that.
I know. It was what could have been, I guess, is the one kind of thought that comes back from that season. I'll never forget sitting in the dugout at SIU Carbondale. I forget who said it, but somebody said, "Oh man, the NBA just shut down." And we're like, "What? Oh man, nothing." We finish the game, we get home, and sure enough, 2 days later, we have a team meeting, and the season's canceled, and we're headed home, and it's just like, wow, how quick did that just change? You're right, guys are going really good. I mean, Durden's hitting the cover off the ball, Dylan Dodd's striking guys out left and right. It's just like, man, where could this go? And then all of a sudden it's taken from you. And I think that was a huge pivot point for when you look up and see the 21 and 22 team. It was time to get to work. When I got there in 2018, we did not make the conference tournament my freshman year. And so you look up, and then 2 years later, and all credit goes to Andy Sawyers and his staff. I mean, they did a wonderful job of not only getting us motivated, but preaching to us that hey, at the end of the day, losing sucks. And so we were doing too much of that, and there had to be a change. And I almost thank COVID. I think it was a blessing in disguise for us personally as a team, because it really allowed us to come together. The guys stayed down in Cape Girardeau that whole time. We were working out outside of what we were allowed to do. Inside the parameters of what we were allowed to do, but at other places, and just finding ways to be able to get our work in. And you look up, and then obviously crafted together two really good teams that obviously made some noise in the postseason, which was awesome. And then take it all the way to 24. SEMO just took down Arkansas in their building in this regional and eliminated them. I mean, it's pretty cool to see kind of how the program, where it was at. It was really good with Coach Beazer. Then we had a little bit of a lull, and then kind of turned it back on. And now, Coach Sawyers and his staff are doing a wonderful job. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, it's the first time I've kind of really talked to anybody that had played during that COVID time. I coached during that COVID time. I was at WashU D3 school here in St. Louis,
Yep.
and we were in Arizona when we got the phone call that said your season was shut down. And so by the time that we got into St. Louis, they had packed our gear and sent most of our kids packing. So they arrived on campus via plane, went to get any little household items that they had, and then were packed back on the plane and sent back home. And so we didn't have that that same opportunity to work together and kind of build that team up. And I think about what you said, and I'm like, man, I wonder if, obviously you think that, but that led to your 21 season, your 22 season, and here we are 23, 24, and you guys have set that tone, and now you've kind of changed that culture again. And you guys, instead of playing games, seems like you were trying to develop yourself, whether it was with your teammates, maybe with a coach, or whatever, like you said, working within the parameters that you had. I just think about the culture change. One, it was a shock, right? COVID was the culture shock, but then you have a choice to make, and it sounds like you guys brought it together, which kind of leads me to what you're doing, in which you talked about more so on the development side of the game versus where I'm at. I'm on the team side, the organization side, and that developmental side as well. I do private lessons. I have my own program as well, and then we have the organization, and the more that I get to train some of the guys that are your age that have played college ball, got through their 4 or 5 years of experience, maybe got a little bit of cup of coffee with an independent league or even, professional baseball, they're coming back talking about being underdeveloped, which that means there's this desire for what you do. Would you say that in today's baseball circle that development is got to be the biggest focus right now, and it's not just 1 to 2 days a week, it's got to be 6 days a week, 7 days a week, it's got to be on your mind all the time? It's a different love.
Absolutely. And I think, as you grow, and from what I've seen, as we grow and mature and, reach those higher levels, that's when you really start to, you have to decide, hey, am I doing this just for fun, or am I doing this because I love this and I want to see how far this will take me? And both are great. I think that's a thing I talk to parents a lot about is, hey, both are great. If you're here to have fun, that's awesome. But we may need to pivot you with a different training program to where, one, you're getting the most out of what you're paying for, but also our trainers and those guys that are working with them, it's just a more of a natural fit. And I think that's the biggest thing to keep in mind when I talk with, parents and players is, hey, what do you want out of this? First off, what do you want? I know where I would like to get you and where I think I can get you. But at the end of the day, it's what you want and what you are trying to do. As far as the development side goes. And I will say, I think I was lucky enough, growing up, I was a natural. I only played for one club ball team. We were lucky enough to have a good team and never need to make a change. But Lance Sherman over there, who I'm sure you know of or heard of, a guy with some pro ball experience, he did a wonderful job of preparing us for what was to come. And I'm not just talking about professional ball, but even into college. You talk to Coach Sawyers, and he always says, we had a little group of guys, 3 guys from my college team that, or from my high school travel ball team that all went on to play at SEMO, all coached by the same guy. And he said, you know what, you 3 by far have been the most prepared for what we have been given you. And obviously that's a kudos to Coach Sherman and what he did for us at a young age. But yes, the development stage is so crucial to not only, being happy and having results, but taking your game to the next level.
Yeah, I think about, it's not just my own experiences. And when I played, obviously I failed too, right? So there was always, if I hit 400, I felt like I was on top of the world in high school. And I was a Suburban North guy. I don't know if the Suburban North was still around when you played, but that was like Hazelwood Central, West, East, Pattonville, Rittner, and I'm a Rittner guy. So our conference was extremely tough, especially with how good McClure North was. The McClure had some big arms in Burns, Ryan Burns. These are probably names that you might not know, but Prater's still around, because he coaches over at the Gators. And then Ryan Model was over there at McClure North. And DeSmet was, at the time, was just insane, and so I felt like if I hit well, I was if I hit 350, I was a happy camper. And now kids today, they're like, if I don't hit 700 in a tournament, it's this major thought process that they like, man, I suck. And I'm trying to tell the guys, I'm like, no, man, you might hit 700 one weekend and hit 200 the next weekend, but you might be hitting 500 for the 2 weekends, which to me, that's pretty darn solid. And they only
absolutely.
We asked them to live pitch to pitch, but I think the stuff that just hangs on. So do you think, like, for you, and part of the development process was, how was your mental side in all of your preparation? Because I feel like that's what has to prepare you for college, is how you mentally can be different than everybody else, because the game is extremely hard. It's hard for everybody. When you get to college, you have guys, and there are guys there from top to bottom on that roster that, one, don't want you to come in as a freshman, take their spots, right? And then they're grown, they're men, they're no longer, teenagers, they're in their 20s. And so you're dealt a different hand where you have to compete differently. And I think it's between the ears. So for me, was it skill set, or I know that's both of it, but what was more of a preparation, the mental side of it, being prepared for school, or the physical tools?
I think for me, I would have to say the mental side. Without a doubt, it is to me the most important thing. You hear the old cliche, baseball's 90% mental, 10% physical, but we don't ever really dive into that mental side of it. And kind of going back to the training, one thing that I like to focus on personally, especially with our hitters, is we're not trying to fix your miss in the cage, right? At the end of the day, how you can hit line drives up the middle and to right center field in the cage, and those mean nothing. We're training to fix your game miss. Where are you missing in the game that isn't allowing you to have the success that you want to have? I see so many guys, man, let's get those swings off in the cage and hit the ball 112 miles per hour. And I fell for that. I was a part of that. And is there time for it? Absolutely. But for me, I think it's okay. Hey, first of all, let's put you in a situation where you're going to have to think, you're going to have to probably struggle. Without a doubt, for me, all of our training, we're always going through. I want to say struggle, but so that when they do get in the game, they can go perform. And that all kind of ties back into the mental side. And for me as a player, I was always, I didn't have to have an exact routine because with baseball, it's not always going to be the exact same thing happen every day. I mean, it's weird because it does. Like BP is always at the same time. You always get to the yard at the same time. But then the little nuances inside of that all kind of get spread out every day. So it wasn't like I had to have something at this time every day. But you can bet your butt I was in there. I was getting my swings 3 hours and 25 minutes before the game, whatever that was. If that was 5 swings, 20 swings, 30 swings, 2 swings. I don't know. I let the day dictate that and how my body was at. But that was all mental for me, getting me geared up to go play in that game. And same thing with practice. And I was always a big, and this would be kind of weird, but I liked sauna and hydrotherapy, or cryotherapy, excuse me. I thought we had both of those down at SEMO, and those were my mental resets every day because the college grind is hard. I mean, I'm sure you know of it, heard stories, you've seen, like the fall grind, that's just half of it. That's not even the cool part. I mean, the fall grind is just so you can get to the fun part, and so it's like, but you need the hard stuff to get to the fun stuff. We can't skip over the 2 steps, and that's where this comes in, and I think that's where this plays a huge factor in getting through the hard stuff to where we can get to the season and have those, those sweeps and those crazy Sunday games that decide the conference tournament and go on and win the conference tournament and go into a regional and the awesome stuff like that. That stuff doesn't show up without the 6, 7, 8 months before. And like you said, it all comes back up to here and how unbreakable you are. I always say to guys, how unbreakable are you up here? I don't care how strong you are. I don't care if you look like Tyler O'Neill and you can hit the ball 900 feet or Aaron Judge. If you can't be ready up here, don't go to the plate. Like you won't give yourself the best chance to succeed.
Yeah, I really like that because what you just said, you won't give yourself the best shot. And I think about that all the time when you have a young pitcher that gets frustrated with mistakes behind them and like they're pitching their tails off, but for whatever reason the defense didn't show up that day, things like that. It's like control what you can control. And I'm a firm believer that you got to be uncomfortable, or you got to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. That was something that our coach at WashU, I coached softball at WashU for 8 seasons.
Okay.
I had 2 D1 athletes, national champions, one that played for Team USA. Shout out to Coach Lett and Coach V while my time was there. And I learned a lot from just their mental side of the game and how that we had to prep for it. I again, I had a child when I was 15 years old. So you want to talk about failure, and like that's got to be insane to deal with. So when I got to be a senior in high school, I didn't care. Like the game was just easy. And again, dealing with the hard part to get to the fun part. The game is what is supposed to be fun. I tried to make practice fun. I tried to find a way to enjoy my time, getting my reps in, being a good teammate, being involved with the coaching staff or whatever the case may be, to try to make that fun because practice was hard. I never had to, we did run after games when we were young, but when did you ever have to run miles? When did you have to run sprints and games? You know what I mean? If you got in trouble, you had to run 5 or 6, whatever, move on, for the
Mhm.
consequence of the day if you were a bad teammate, whatever.
Right.
However, practice was difficult. Everything that you had to do was paced, timed out. It's section one, section two, or whatever you guys called period one, period two, whatever you guys called it. You had to stick to the time, to stick to the plan.
Right.
The workouts at 5 a.m., the
Yep.
study halls at 9 p.m., and you had to do that 5 or 6 days a week. That was all
Yep.
from fall, winter, not even playing games. Because
Right.
and I
Well,
think all
yeah,
that mental toughness prepped you for all the long bus rides. We
absolutely.
we had to
Yeah.
ride buses when my first 4 years we were at WashU. We rode buses everywhere.
Yeah,
So
we were buses too. I'll tell you that. I did not take one flight in my time there. So, um,
I
it
I'm
was
not,
it
man,
was
I
the
tell you what, so when Coach V got there at WashU, we had Josh Whitman. I think I'm saying his name right. He's a University of Illinois guy. Was a football guy for Illinois, and he became our AD after we had the same guy for 40 plus years. We get a new AD in, and he's like, I want these kids to have this D1 experience. That's how we have to recruit these kids, because WashU, you had to have a special kind of talent, which was
right,
what's between the ears to begin with. And
right.
he wanted to have these experiences for our kids. And next thing I know, I'm flying everywhere, and we're staying in way nicer hotels, and we're doing all these different things. And all of a sudden, we were able to recruit a little bit different because of the facilities that they upgraded and the experience of flying versus, if anything was over 300 miles or whatever it was, he's like, put you on a plane. And
Right.
as much as I love the bus rides, because there's a lot of fun that happened there, it was so much nicer being there in 2 hours, or an hour and a half versus a
You
20-hour drive down to Florida.
Right. You can't complain. Absolutely. I would have taken any flight. We had some of those 13, 14, 15-hour rides where the traffic or the weather or anything, I just, I'm, so thankful for all those times though. I mean, without a doubt, obviously love them all, but I definitely don't mind catching a flight nowadays, as opposed
Yeah.
to hopping in the bus.
The bus rides though are awesome though, and this, man. There's just a lot that happens on those bus rides. Most of our kids studied. We'd have a 10-hour drive, and they'd study 8 of the hours, sleep for an
Right.
hour, and then it felt like a nightclub on there. We always had these things called Bear Idol, and we would have to sing lip sync songs. I
Yeah.
got to ask this question because everybody, it's funny, but there's no number twos on buses.
No, there's not.
So I'm
There
sure
is not.
someone has had to.
I think it's been done. I know I've been on a bus when it's been done. Um, I nobody wanted to be the guy that had to ask to pull over, and I think it probably happens more than you think. You just don't know about it, and all of a sudden, after day three of that trip, all of a sudden the back of the bus starts to stink a little bit. At the beginning of the trip, everyone's in a rush to get to the back of the bus. And then by the end of the trip, people start working their way back up to those front seats. It's pretty funny how that all works out.
Yeah, we had like an hour into our drive one year, we had an athlete that had to go, and of course didn't want to. By the time we hit Florida, oh man, it was our coach come out of the seat unglued, like, who did it? We're running. We had
Yeah,
consequences. It was like, and none of the youth, I don't think, understands what kangaroo court is, and so that was one of the things that was on kangaroo court. And needless to
yeah,
say, I think I got ice cream for like 2 days after that. That was the deal. Is we had to get ice cream. But yeah, no, the experiences, I think, for me, and I'm sure that with all the bus rides, I mean, heck, the minor leagues, you don't fly in the minor leagues. You have to. It's a lot of bus trips then too, and you were still part of the old plan in the minor leagues. You didn't have none of the new features, how much they get paid these days. You were still kind of under that old players agreement, right? Where it's like, I mean, you were sharing
right.
apartments with 5 guys.
So I was lucky enough to come in on the first year that they kind of were starting the transition. So it was not even as much in place as it is now. But I was blessed, to have a 2-bedroom apartment, and the buses, we always had 2 buses a trip. So we were spread out. It wasn't like we were all jammed on one bus, which was awesome. So I kind of thankfully got to reap a little bit of the beginning of those benefits of kind of what has come around for minor league players, and the advancements they've made on that side, which was really cool and is really cool to see.
So everybody, there's always a beginning to and an end to everything, and life, sports, obviously. When you made that decision, and this could be personal, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but how tough was it for you to, and maybe you've already started AK-12, because I think AK-12 has been around for a couple of years. You were still kind of doing it in the winter and stuff. So you kind of had something to fall back on. But when you made that decision to say, you know what, I'm retiring, I'm hanging these cleats up, I'm going to focus on something different, how difficult was that for you?
Man, it was tough. You talk about playing for or being a part of probably one of the top organizations in the MLB right now. I mean, the facilities, I can't even try and sit here and kind of tell you. It's like heaven on earth. When you go down to Florida and the spring training facility, and playing in Augusta and in Rome and Truist, it's all beautiful. And the guys and the coaching staff, men and women, everyone was great, wonderful. But at the end of the day, if I had to tell you kind of why I decided to, I kind of had gone through it for 2 years, was playing here and there. And at the end of the day, I got to 24 spring training. So actually just this spring training in February, kind of looked up, and, I was a catcher drafted in the 10th round, and I had caught one game in 2 years. And I was DHing here and there, kind of just at the end of the day, I was going home and I was being like, man, I don't feel fulfilled. I don't feel like I am giving everything that I have to offer to this world, to baseball, whatever that may be. So kind of went through spring training, and it was a tough time sitting there like, man, do I want to keep doing this not only for me, but am I selfish for continuing to chase this for my family? I want to start something. While the minor league baseball money is better, it's nothing that you can save or really, it's pretty much come in and it goes out. Especially for a guy like me, who I wasn't having all my bats paid for, my batting gloves, my cleats. I had a little bit, but I had to purchase a lot of that on my own as well. And so at the end of the day, I was like, I just had a feeling that there was something else out there, that maybe my playing side was kind of coming to an end, but there was something else out there, another avenue for me, to express not only what I've learned, what I've felt, what I've done, and I'm so happy that I made the decision to kind of step away from the playing side. And I feel so much more involved now that I'm not actually on the bench, on the lineup card. I feel like I'm able to give so much more now to all the players that I work with and all the people outside that I just talked to, guys that are still in it. I have a lot of good buddies that are still playing. Luke Mann, who I'm sure you know, the name, we were at Vianney together. He's in the athletics organization right now. And, just talking with him, and yeah, man, I totally remember when I had that feeling. It sucks. A quick little story I have for you. I just think it's great to kind of pull everything together. I was in Low A in 2022. It was a Sunday afternoon game. I was in the lineup. Ended up going 2 for 4 with an inside the park home run. So, which is just doesn't happen often. I can send you the video. The ball literally went off the center fielder's head, rolled 35 feet that way, and I was able to come all the way around. Had a double. The game was great, awesome, feeling great. Monday's an off day, family's in town, going to get ready for that next week. Get into the locker room. Coach calls me into the manager's office and says, "Hey, Andrew, I apologize to let you know this. I'm sorry, but you're going on the development list." Development list is basically you cannot play until further notice. It's always at least a week, but then it can be 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It never, you don't know. And so, I mean, like the emotions that took over me right after that happened. And that was the moment right there when I realized, like, not only is baseball not fair, but life isn't fair. Like, man, there would never have been a day at SEMO if I went 2 for 4 with a home run and a double that the coach tells me, "Hey, you're not playing next week." You know what I'm saying? And it was totally out of my control. And as crazy as it sounds, it was out of my manager's control. He didn't make that move. He doesn't make those moves. But it was just that kind of like that aha moment where it's like, man, they're right. Like every time I've heard somebody say this isn't fair, or minor leagues, man, it's a tough grind. I was like, this right here, this moment is what they're talking about. And, I don't say that story to or try to, I could care less. I didn't get much playing time, and I'm totally okay with that. I wasn't as talented or to the level. And there's some other political things that kind of go into all of that. But I just kind of tell you that story to say hey man, it's not fair. And you can go out and do all you can do, only what you can control. Go get your hits, go be the best teammate you can be. And you may still not get the best, what you want out of it. And that's okay. That's why that's those hard times. That's the fall ball right there, to get to the spring, if you will. And so just, that's a funny story I tell people sometimes, just about, hey, I just had a great game, did what I was supposed to do, what I felt like I was supposed to do, and boom, I'm back to it. So.
I think about when you just sit there and you go, that's a funny story. I'm like, man, that's a gut-wrenching story to hear that but that's the business side of the sport. I mean, a 10th round pick, Justin just experienced the same thing. Former teammate with you at SEMO. I'm friends with Justin. I was at their wedding. With all the guys that were down there from when he got married to Abby, and I've known those guys for a long time, specifically Abby, because my daughter and Abby had played softball against each other and stuff like that. So I think about when he walked away from the game, he's got similar feels and stories, and it's funny that you giggle, but I'm like, man, that's got to be a gut punch. It is, but it's the learning opportunity that now you can take to explain to your athletes that you work with, and explain to them that shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be, let's develop you into the best player that you can be, and let everything else happen the way it's supposed to happen. And I felt the same way that you did when I worked for City Group for a long time, 10, 15 years, whatever it was. And I got lucky to get a job at Wash U. I had been coaching my daughter's team for a couple years, wasn't part of an organization. I was independent, just having a good time, just being a softball coach. And at the time, to be honest with you, I didn't want to coach baseball because all the baseball players knew exactly everything. It's like they knew it all, right? And so softball still at the time they played really hard for me. And I was sitting in a dugout. I played adult baseball, and I was playing in the Montclair League. I was sitting next to a friend who's a Wash U grad, played at Wash U, worked with a guy that was the head coach's husband. And that one thing led to another. She's like, you got to coach. I played for a guy, Jay Davis, he's passed away, but he's like, man, right before he passed away, he's like, you got to get involved in coaching. I didn't want nothing to do with that. I was happy with my life, but I wasn't happy enough. And I did. I made that choice. I took a giant leap and walked away from everything that I was doing, all the 401k, I'm in my life now. I'm 30-something years old, so I'm in life. And I walked away, and I tell you, it's been great because I am fulfilling a different role, and you never know what role it is. Obviously, you'd rather be, I'm sure at some point you wanted to be a big leaguer versus a batting coach, a hitting coach, right, whatever you want to call yourself, a developer. Yeah. And, I thought I was just going to retire from a mortgage company to slanging mortgages all over the place. And I took a pay cut to do this. And I wake up every day enjoying my opportunities. And when you talked about walking away from the game and started talking about being a developer, you had this giant smile on your face. And I think that's what people need to see is, go do what you love to do, because it's not a real job. You wake up every day wanting to be better for somebody else. And I think with all your experiences, that's what I'm getting out of this conversation is you are doing what you're supposed to be doing right now, and that's influencing people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, this has just been a total open door to a crazy amount of possibilities to be able to help these athletes. And I think also, for me, working with these athletes, it goes outside of the baseball. It goes more to life. Like any coach that I was close with or mentor that I was close with growing up, they always ended up being someone that I stayed in contact with, even when it wasn't about baseball or it wasn't about my goes down.
This is what I love about baseball players. It's like we get on these things where we just talk, and then we're like, I had moments, I had new ideas. The brain is all over the place. But that's again, this is, hey, being comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's dealing with things. And again, going back to what led you to be the guy that you are now from all of the playing experiences, and the influences on life. You talked about your coaches, how they're mentors. I'm 44 years old, and 30 years ago almost, I have people impacting my life. And one of my greatest, and you'll one day get this feeling when you have kids that are older, graduated, moved on, give you your thanks. I know that this is something you do with Shane Eames as of recent conversations. But for
Yeah.
me, I have kids that are now inviting me to their weddings. I get baby, I don't know what they call them, but when they're having a baby, I get those announcements. Um,
Right.
I get all these experiences that I did not know that I had that kind of impact at that given time. And I'm sure you can agree with some of this. You At the time you're living in the moment, but 10 years go by, or 5 years, 4 years go by, and you reflect, it's like, man, I needed those
Yeah.
people in my life. And that's what I want to do for my guys, my athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I fall right there in line with you. As we were kind of talking about earlier, I think for me, not only is the baseball side of coaching great, but I want those athletes to come back to me, whether that be while we're still working together or, like you say, 10 years down the line, and continue that relationship and have those conversations, maybe the tough ones that they don't want to have with everyone, but because of that relationship we've built in the training environment, where if you think about it, they were failing a lot and using me and other athletes as a backboard to try and figure out what the heck they're doing right now. And it's that same kind of feeling in that life when they get into a spot where they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Well, hey, guess what? I can be, as much as I possibly can, be that backboard for them and just listen and, maybe have some sort of experience that I can speak to for them. But just really, I'm still closest with a lot of those mentors that I had even just 10 years ago. Like I talked to a lot of them and use them now for things not about my swing, because guess what, my swing doesn't matter anymore, or my stance behind the plate doesn't matter anymore. But we still have those conversations, and I think that's super important. This isn't about our off season and you getting better and we're not seeing you ever again. This is about a relationship in a long term relationship. So
Yeah, I build relationships, not transactions. That's when I started working with Brian, who is YBM, Red Earth Productions.
mhm.
Um, that's the first thing he said to me early on is he wants to build relationships and not transactions. And it immediately became a trust. Like, I trusted this guy because he wanted to have that. He cared more about how I was doing, whether it was off air talking for 30 minutes about something that I thought was my way. He gave me a different perspective, whether it was baseball,
Mhm.
life, God, whatever. He would take the time when he would pass up lunch with his wife to have a conversation with me, because in that moment he felt that he needed to have it. That to me, I think, is the biggest thing, because sometimes these kids don't have a place that they can just go ramble off whatever their feelings are without getting ridiculed by him or judged or whatever. And I'm like, man, I've experienced a lot in life. How can I help you? And then sometimes they don't trust you right away, right? But when you do that and then they say something and they realize that their word sticks to the chest and you're not just telling the whole world about some kid's faults, um,
Right.
it all of a sudden they become something much bigger, and 16,
Yeah.
17 years old, you become a different kind of coach. You're
Yeah.
obviously you're not a parent, right? You're not going to replace a parent, but you're about as close as you can to impacting somebody lifelong. And you could choose 4 words and they could immediately go away from you, and you'll impact that kid on a negative way. And you could choose 2 words and be like, 4 more words, I can do that, I'm here for you, whatever. And boom, you have impacted someone for life. And I absolutely enjoy that part of it. And I never thought I was going to get back into baseball once my time was done. I never was lucky enough to play professional baseball. I care about the game a ton because it's given me so much
Mhm.
joy in life. And so I feel like I owe it. I feel like I owe a lot of it to my experiences from baseball. And I want to give back, and I'm in the community I played in, and all these different things. And so what kind of leads me to some of the things that you said earlier in your show, in this conversation, is you played for one guy in select ball. I didn't have travel, whatever you wanted to call it. I didn't have this setting. I had Legion, and Legion was very important. So I played high school baseball, and then I played with most of those guys in the summer. And I experienced just one team for 4-something years, and it was an experience. And you had played for one guy with Coach Sherman for 4 or 5 years, maybe a little longer. What do you think about like today's generation of athlete and parent? Because I think parent has a lot of influence on just hopping around, whether it's hitting with me one week and hitting with you a second week. That may be a little different, but coach to coach, team to team, it's like every year they're playing for 2 or 3 teams because they don't like a circumstance. What advice can you give to a family that does that? I'm not sure if I'm asking that question the politically
I
right
understand
way.
totally. I totally understand what you're saying, and I see it day to day. I get calls from parents asking, "Hey," and this time right now actually is a big time for it because tryouts are happening and decisions are having to be made. Um, getting these calls from parents, "Oh, we're thinking about going to this team or that team, and we don't like that over here." I always tell them, "Hey, I think you need to find first off a coach that you really like and that you want your son or daughter to play with or for." Because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones making the decisions throughout the course of the season. They're going to be the ones that you're working throughout the course of the season. And then from there, let's look at the development plan. What's the development plan look like? Is it going to set your daughter or son up to, in 6 months, have made some sort of, whether that be mental or physical, some sort of improvement? Or do you get that feeling of, I don't know? If you get that feeling, okay, then it's probably not the right fit for you guys. And I think for me, we see so much on social media. We see everyone's best stuff, right? We don't see any of the bad swings. We don't see any bad work. We see only the best stuff. And that puts a lot of pressure on kids nowadays to be their best. Like you said earlier, hitting 700 in a tournament and still not happy. That's ridiculous. You should be happy to hit 300, just an example. But it just, we're surrounded in a media world, which obviously I love it. It's great. I think there's really good tools for it. But at the end of the day, also, I think it is hindering our kids because they're only seeing the best of the best on every site that they go on, whether that be YouTube or Instagram, Twitter, all of that stuff. And so I think for me, it's trying to understand, let these families understand, one, all of these programs kind of are all ran in the same way, if you will. Now, there's differences here and there with coaches and development programs and things like that. But at the end of the day, they're all clubs. So you need to find one that you really like and that you believe in. Just like when I kind of tell parents when you're shopping around for like someone you want to work with privately or, like with a more of a small group session, you need to find someone that you want to work with, not just, oh, Johnny's 2 friends are on this team, so let's try this one out this year. There's never, if we're jumping around 2 to 3, 4, 5 teams in 6, 7, 8 years, where's that consistency for the athlete? Where are they able to sit there and build on something over 2 or 3 years? It's not going to happen overnight, and that's the biggest thing for me. Like, we were able to mold as a Naturals 11U team all the way to 18U. Those 6 or 7 years that we spent together, that's the reason why we had so much fun and why nobody left. We were able to build as a team, and not only build as a team, but see our improvements over the years. And I think that was huge for us. We were able to put work in, and then at the end of the day, see something on the back end. And it all kind of comes back to that. I think that's super huge for choosing somewhere to play, but also for the development.
Yeah, the whole thing about process, and and it's funny that, again, spending 4 years playing Legion baseball, 4 years of high school baseball, playing the same guys, or now playing with some rivals, there was a process that started day one that may not have seen any results until the final year that we were together, maybe even in college, that it prepared me for. And I think about that now, and this is what drives me bonkers. It's so much chasing a color of the uniform or a name or a win, and I just think that everything that I do as a coach has nothing to do with a win. And I will, as a coach, I don't, I will sacrifice a win to help a kid get through some adversity. If he's dealing, for 5 innings and all of a sudden he gets into let's say he's, in the 6th inning and his pitch count looks great. He goes out there, but for whatever reason, he lost a little bit of focus between the 5th and the 6th inning. And he goes out there and gives out a couple of runs. Instead of pulling him out, and that's the last thing he gets to remember, I got a 50-50 shot, right? I will risk him giving up the rest of that inning, or going out and saying, hey, I got to shut it down. And again, I'm 50-50 on this, right? And I've failed and gone out there and left a kid out there too long. But I've also had a success where that kid has buckled down and gone out and got out of that inning. Maybe we got lucky. It was a tie ball game. But again, it's the long-term impact. What gets tough in the 2nd and 3rd inning sometimes when you just lost it for some reason and you got to regain it. If you don't get those experiences, you're not going to be prepared for the college level, because you're going to have to deal with adversity at the upper levels of high school and in college. Obviously, playing at Vianney, you played some very good schools and programs. So I'm sure at some point you couldn't take a day off. You had to be locked in for a week straight. The MCC, that's what you guys played in, right?
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm sure Chaminade was probably still pretty good. And, DeSmet, CBC, all those schools were always probably competing very well. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't play the game to lose. I don't do that. But the whole time limit stuff, like the coaches that play the time limit game, drives me bonkers. I'll have parents that'll say, Coach, we got 3 minutes left. And I say, if we can't win this game in 3 minutes, we are in an hour and 57 minutes, if it's a 2-hour game, we don't deserve to win the game. And that's my mentality, because it's the long-term process and the impact that has on how to close a game out. Because in college, it's innings, it's not time. In professional baseball, it's innings, not time. And so I'm like, guys, we got to play with this. And everything I heard you say there is thinking about my own time and development and process. And when kids leave, you'll just get to a point where it starts to click for the kid, and the parent's like, well, they were 10 and 15. Never mind the fact that we lost some really close games, or we lost by a run or two. We never got blown out. We were in everything. We just didn't hit well enough, or whatever the case may have been. They don't see the double cuts that we struggled on a year and a half ago, or the infield pointing at the pop fly for the catcher to see behind him when he needs a little bit of help on. And those are things that are mandatory, and they don't see that stuff. And I'm like, man, look at the big leagues. They do it in the big leagues. Right. Why shouldn't we be practicing this thing? And I think we should start doing it at 10, 11, 12 years old, and demanding that we try to play the game a particular way, because at 14, it starts getting real, especially out here in the GACs. The GAC conference out here is tough, man. And kids get cut that throw 85 miles an hour. It's crazy. Because 85 when I played was really good.
Right. I know. Well,
I mean, 85 is still good, but it seems like 90 is way easier to come by.
It's wild.
Give me some advice before we go, Andrew. Give me some advice for our youth. And it could be families. It could be our athletes. It could be mental. It could be physical. I love this game dearly, and I know you do, obviously, having this conversation with you and sharing some texts with you, how pumped you are getting on the show. I was excited to have you, so we're going to have you again, maybe even come in with Shane and just talk about the hitting stuff. But give me something for our youngsters out there. And I'm talking like the 10, 11, 12-year-olds maybe that the parents still think that they got the next, Bobby Witt Jr. or Ellie De La Cruz. Give me something for those for young families.
For me, I would say, the biggest takeaway from college and pro ball that I took, or one of the biggest ones, is I would kind of always look around and just see other coaches, especially in pro ball. I mean, there's enough coaches there that we could, run a whole club here in St. Louis just for one team's worth of coaches in pro ball. And one thing I noticed is the coaches that I saw that were the quietest, the most under control, and this goes for players too, you know, just watching, not screaming, understanding what's going on. Those coaches right there, to me, that was the coach that I was like, all right, that's the person I want to talk to. That's the person that's in control of their emotions. That's the person that I know I can go to and bounce some ideas off or say, hey, I know you were paying attention. What do you think of this? For me, for the youth, the 11, 12, 13, the biggest thing I think I would say is let's not worry so much about the flash, right? Let's worry about the game. What does the game mean to you? What does the game, mean for your family? What do you put into the game outside of posting on social media pictures of your swings or your fielding? And that stuff's great. I love that stuff. But at the end of the day, I want to get back to the game of baseball, practicing all day, every day, if you can, if you want to. And, giving your all, even when it's not going your way. I see a lot of young athletes, as soon as it doesn't go their way, it's done. It's over. It's shut down. It's time to pivot. And those 11, 10, 11, 12, 13, those are the years where you can really start to pivot your career. And I know that's kind of crazy to say, but if you're that serious about it and you have aspirations of playing in high school and college and pro ball, then that's what you should be doing. And I'm by no means saying take the fun out of the game. I without a doubt think you need to have fun. Personally, as a player, I was a little quiet, but when I needed to let some emotion out, I can guarantee you I was going to let it out. It wasn't often, but it happened. And I think, and I'm not saying there's one perfect player out there or one mold, but just put our heads down and let's get to work, and then let's look up after 6 months or a year and let's see where we're at. I think everyone is so, they tend to get caught up in the flash and the media and here's my highlight videos and my films and all that stuff, especially at a young age. Hey, let's just go have fun and play baseball. Let's go have fun, play baseball, work super hard, take the hard times, let them forge you, let them build you, and then see where we're at. I think for me, that's one of the most important things that I would like to see, as we move forward and through all this, the craziness of the baseball world.
Old school still works, right? Like I feel like that's an old head thought, like that's exactly what I go about business. Now, I will tell you that I learned something from you just now, and I didn't know I was going to learn anything from you, but this one stuck with me, and I know it's just recent, but you talked about being under control, the coaches being under control, kind of the players under control, being that even keel kind of guy. I have the hardest time in today's game coaching because we have kids that want to play college baseball, and they only work the 2 days of practice. They don't work on their craft. They don't work on the mental side. They want to show teammates up, whatever the case may be. It drives me bonkers. And as a coach, that with the experience that I have, and I think the IQ that I have, I tend to get emotional on the field. And there's some places for it, but when I do get emotional, I am aware of this. So I try to do my best after I get into a kid or light the team up, whatever the case may be. I do try to connect and say, hey, listen, this is why I'm feeling this way. Because I think that's both sides of it. But I sometimes wonder if I could control my emotions a little bit better, could I gain a little bit more trust? And I think with you saying that is finding out or seeking out, especially with kind of the new generation. My coach could yell at me, and I loved it. I just loved it because for whatever reason, it motivated me. And I can't yell at a kid to motivate him. I gotta take playing time away from him. But if I take playing time, they think they're the worst player on the field. And so there's this fine line. And I really just took that to heart just now, just because I am that guy. I'm an emotional guy. I'm loud. I'm energetic. I owe a lot to the game. So I took that from you. I'm trying to tell you to, hey, tell the young kids something. You told me something that I think I can work on my game with and maybe would help my group out to have a little bit more trust. So thank you, Andrew, for helping me with that. But I loved every piece of that, man. It's get back to baseball. And 10 years old, you can teach double cuts and relays. You can teach how to manage first and thirds instead of just getting on base and just running all over the place because you want to win.
Right.
And the game's not played that way once we get 60 feet, 60, 90. the game changes
Mm-hmm.
drastically. You don't throw hard anymore. You can't throw as
Right.
accurate anymore at 14 years old. You have to take those lumps. The bat changes, they get heavier. And I get back to being prepared to play baseball, which is part of that process, which is part of that development. But Andrew, give us fans here for YBM, and we're going to share this on our social medias, of course.
Yeah.
Give us some information about how we can find you on social media, and let our fans know about AK-12.
Yeah, I'm actually on X at Keck Academy. I'm also on Instagram at make sure I give you the right name, AK12 Sports Group. I will say here, and I don't have it available right now. I wish I did. It'd be awesome, but I am getting ready to launch a remote slash hybrid training side of things, which is also going to obviously be. I'm going to have a landing page and an app. So those will be out coming soon for the training and development side. Currently, kind of the way I do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we tend to do a lot of group sessions, anywhere from 3 to 7 o'clock, and then also do offer the one-on-one, more private stuff at with the availability as that we have. But running everything out of Center St. Louis here in Afton, Missouri. And so super pumped for the off season. Got a lot of hitters and catchers getting ready to come in and put that work in and see where we're at here in 6 months. And so if anyone would like to reach out, obviously reach out on any of those socials and DM me for anything, whether it be just to talk or need a lesson or anything of the sort. Questions, whatever it may be. Would love to chat with anyone and talk about baseball.
Man, I'm kind of getting excited for you. I think we met maybe 2 years ago. You came out to the facility for something. I don't know if it was a camp or I was working on something.
At the hitting zone?
Yeah.
I think it was for a catching camp. I remember that now. Yeah, for Brian Patterson was running a catching camp, and I think
That's
I was
right.
helping out or something. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was maybe 2 years ago. I think that was kind of the first time I met you, and I didn't want to be a super fan that talked about your baseball career, because I think it's pretty neat to have those kinds of experiences, and then I like to pick the brains of them, because I never was that guy. I loved baseball, but I never was talented enough to make it to that level. Wrong size, should have played football probably, but. Man, Andrew, I really, really appreciate it, and good luck. I would like to get together again and maybe put everybody together, me, you, Shane, and even some other guys, get Justin back into it, get a camp out at the hitting zone. And that's what I like about dealing with some of our group, is that everybody can set the ego aside, and it's not just AK-12, it's not just the hitting zone or Match Factory, it's not just PhD for Shane. It is literally a bunch of hitting guys coming together for one common goal, and that's to make the youth better. And that's why we wanted to bring you on the show. And for all of our fans, you guys got to go out there. You got to go to YouTube, Youth Baseball Midwest. You got to hit that little dinger, because that's what we do. He likes to throw people out. I don't have that kind of arm anymore, but I'll never steal off you, Andrew, just to let you know. I probably won't take a base on anybody. I don't even know if I could hit a baseball anymore, but go get that follow, get that dinger, get that like, whatever, on all of the socials. And man, I'm super pumped about this conversation, Andrew, and hope to have you on again and then work together in the future for something. And best of luck to you, man, with all the new experiences that you'll have. And seems like this is going to be your first full off-season program, and you brought up 6 months, which that tells everybody that's listening that it's not overnight. It's not 1 week of hitting. And man, thank you for joining me and taking part of your day for us over here at YBM.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Without a doubt, with an invitation, we'll hop on another call, as many as you guys ask. I love talking baseball, and obviously getting to talk with you was wonderful. And anything else that people need, don't hesitate to reach out, or you guys. I'd love to help if possible, and super excited for this off season coming up.
Yeah, man, let's do it. I appreciate it, Andrew. Thank you for your time, bud. Have a good day.
Appreciate it. Thank you.